Hey everybody, it's Tamika Show. Wanted to come on really, really quick and do kind of a midnight confessional. Whatever. Trying to block the light a little. Um, yeah, it's really drowned out right now, but whatever. Anyway, was journaling, and in the journaling process, over the course of maybe the last 4, maybe 5 journal entries, I've had kind of the same reoccurring theme come up, and that's potential. And potential of self, potential of the world, potential of just everything, potential. And, over the course of maybe the last 10 years, I kind of did this little chart to see, my patterns, because we're habitual people, and so somewhere along the lines we are creating patterns. And so I did this kind of chart to see, where my patterns lie. And one of the things that come up a lot is that I have fallen in love with people's potential and not necessarily the person themselves. And what happens is in 3 or 4 years, that potential doesn't play out, and I lose interest and kind of move on. So I was talking to a friend earlier today. This is really a confessional. Like, I'm completely forgetting that the camera is there. But anyway, I was talking to a friend today, and they were telling me about, things that they were going through, and it just reminded me again about, my pattern and falling in love with potential. I'm really good at seeing the potential in things. I'm good at seeing potential in myself and others around me, the potential of the world, all of that. I'm really good at that. But unfortunately, um, the moment that those potentials, not the moment, and I'm actually really good at hanging in there and possibly, waiting it out for a very, very, very long time to see if those potentials will play out. And oftentimes they don't at all. And it's really sad because, you really want it to play out, but it doesn't. And then you get caught up in this pattern where you're kind of beating yourself up, and then after you beat yourself up for a little while, you start beating up the other person, like pushing them for things that they really aren't ready for. And um, that was interesting, that journal entry has played itself out at least 4 times this week. I think it played out a couple of times last month and a couple of times before that as well. So I'm thinking, this is another pattern I need to look at that's resurfacing and examine. And potential is a big one. It's a big one. And um, how do you know if you're falling in love with the person, the person for who they are, or if you're falling in love with the potential of that person? Like, how do you look at a thing and say it's a rose when it's just a bud? Like, how do and you love it because thorns and all, because it has the potential of becoming a rose, you know, and um, possibly even duplicating itself and, really, multiplying and becoming this big rose bush, which, will smell great and look beautiful and all that. But how do you know that that's actually going to happen? And if you see a bud, how do you fall in love with the bud itself? No matter, and you see the thorns. The thorns are there. You see, what I'm saying is I see fault. I see, and I'm accepting of the condition that it is in that moment. But in the back of my head, there's always this thought of one day this thing could be beautifully velvety red or beautifully yellow. Like, um, although it is just a bud and it's just got thorns in it, and it's needs watering and conditioning, and I'm all for watering and conditioning and watching it and nurturing it and caring for it. And I get caught up in that routine, and then 3-4 years down the line, when it's still just a bush of thorns that only have these little buds that never really come to fruition, I kind of get deterred. And um, then I start taking it out on that rose bush. I start changing its diet, or start wishing that it was, would see its potential and go ahead and blossom, um, and it's sad. Like I look at it and I think, oh my God, this is kind of crazy. um, you know, in retrospect, I really think I am examining that and thinking, this is insanity. This is really an insane thing to do on a regular basis. So I don't know. Thought I'd come on and talk about that for a moment at least, so that could hear my thoughts on that and pose the question. One is, um, how do you see past a person's potential and just look at what is and fall in love with that? I'm a dreamer, and um, I think one of my strongest points is my optimism and my dreams, my ability to visualize, and but also I understand that being grounded and being in the now is very important to me as well. And so having those two things kind of come at each other and smash against each other, it's really causing conflict within me mentally right now, because I just can't see how the two really work together. You know you know how does that work? you know um yeah, how does that work? Anyway, so the first question obviously is, how do you see past the potential in love? Kind of saying, how do you not dream and just be? I guess that's what I'm saying. And then also, you know, have you looked at patterns in your life, and what have you seen from those patterns? What have you seen? Like 10 years ago, I had a blue car that was a stick. Um, I'm so not like exaggerating. Um, I'm sorry, not 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I had a car that was a stick, and that was blue. And again, now I have a car that is blue, that is a stick. Really, really funny. Um, about 10 years ago, I wanted to be a drifter. I wanted to, just travel around the world, and I was going to join the Peace Corps, and I didn't. Kind of kicking myself for that now, although I do see how I would still be in the same position I am now, because eventually I would have settled down and um, that sort of thing. So I still see me still being here, but I didn't. And now I have that itch again. I have that itch where I really want to, do some kind of civil work, some kind of civil work where I travel and, and move all around and see the world and help people, and help society in a just way, and I see that now, and the same pattern, same patterns coming up again, um, in school again, um, another pattern back in school again, and same things are coming up with school too. At the beginning, I'm really, really gung-ho about it, um, and then health issues, same thing happened, health issue, and then I try and just persevere and get through it, which I'm doing now, but I don't have that same enthusiasm I once had about it all. So anyway, the question is patterns. Do you see patterns in your life, things that keep coming around and around and around, and how do you love a dream as it's happening before it gets to the end, before it reaches its potential continuously? How do you continue to love the dream as it's happening before you see the vivid, rainbow, before you see the stars? How do you stay in that? Anyway, hope you are doing great, and this is my midnight confessional. Pieces like Reese's. See you until next time.